All right, so today, talking about tax assessments. BC assessment. We're middle of January almost right now, and the values for BC assessment just came out. So if you haven't got yours yet, it will be coming in the mail, or you can check it online. You can go to bcassessment.com or Google that, find that out, see what your tax assessment is. Now, there's a lot of confusion when it comes to tax assessments. What is that number based on? What do I do if I don't like the value that I'm seeing in on my tax assessment? It's really interesting because you've got the people that want a high tax assessment because they think that's good, their property's worth more, but that means their property taxes are higher. So and then you've got the other people that are like, I want my tax assessment as low as possible so I pay as little taxes. So it depends on what side you're on, but you can appeal your tax assessment if you don't like it, and you have until February 2nd of 2026 to do that. And there is a bit of a process. I've done it before on a property. It's pretty simple. You just have to show proof as to why, and if they agree with your proof, then they change it. So, but let's talk about the assessment, the assessed value of your home and what that really means. How do they come up with this value? Because the BC Assessment Authority has an algorithm that they use that takes similar homes to yours and similar properties, and they assign it a value. This is not a market value. This does not mean that's what your house is worth or what we'd list it for or how much a buyer is willing to pay. I have properties that have sold in the last year well above the tax assessment, and other properties have sold for well below the tax assessment. But what causes your tax assessment to go up or down from year to year? Well, that's a good question. What it is similar homes to yours that have transacted or changed hands, sold in the last year, they're going to use that as evidence to whether the value of yours goes up or down. But what's really interesting, if you live in a mixed neighborhood, like for example, where I live on Craig Street in Parksville, we've got a huge variety of properties. We've got some larger lots, close to an acre. Those properties are worth close to $2 million. And then we've got other older lots with old mobile homes on it, which are worth closer to $500,000. So on my street from year to year, if an older mobile home sells for $500,000, it pulls the average way down. And likewise, if a high-end property sells, it pulls it back up. So on our street, we get actually some pretty big swings from year to year depending on what has sold. So just gives you a bit of context. And so if yours went down, it doesn't mean that your property is worth less in the market. What it means is that based on what has sold, it's pulled that average, or that algorithm has pulled that average down, and so your tax assessment goes down or up. So it also doesn't take into account any work or renovations you've done to your home without a permit, because it doesn't get reported to the tax assessment. So, but if you get permits to renovate your kitchen and it's a $50,000 project, you have to report that on your permitting papers, and that gets reported to the tax assessment. So if you did a kitchen renovation and it was permitted, you'll see your taxes bump up for the next year. That kind of gives you a basin of what they are. Did I miss anything?
Should people appeal their tax assessment?
Oh, so whether you should appeal your tax assessment or not, I mean, that's really up to you. But I owned a property once that we had purchased that was in a real state of disrepair, and the assessed value of that property was $600,000, and we had purchased it for $400,000. And so the property had potential to be worth $600,000 with a lot of repairs and work done to it, but the current market value was not. So when I appealed that property, was able to show that what we had just paid for it, they adjusted it right down. So in that case, yes, but it's up to you. If your buyers like to use the tax assessment when it's to their advantage. So if there's a property that's listed at a price that's way above the tax assessment, they'll usually ask why and how in relation to the tax assessment the value, the real market value is. And a lot of times where we run into that is when there has been major renovations done without permits. And sometimes it's just improvements. They did landscapes, $100,000 in landscaping. Like the tax assessment authority has no idea about that, right? So it can really affect the value. But so should you appeal or not? It's really up to you. If it's way out of line, then yes. Why would you want to pay more taxes than you have to?
Is this a critical number that people should be stressed about?
No, I mean, there's the mill rate is what determines what your actual property taxes are. And so that's just a percentage that's multiplied by the assessed value, and it comes to a number. Obviously, if on a budget and you don't want to pay more than you have to, then appeal it and get it lower. But it's not going to be huge, like as a percentage, especially with the cost of everything else. I'd be more concerned with prices of groceries than my taxes, property taxes right now. That's ridiculous. Anyways, that's another topic.
Okay, so Parksville saw a 3% increase in assessed value, and Qualicum Beach actually dropped by 2%.
Okay.
Can you speak a bit to why this is the case?
Yeah, so you'll hear in the media, well, the true fact is that Parksville's tax assessments on average went up by 3% and Qualicum Beach went down by 2%. Why did one go up and the other one go down? Well, it's based on the information, what they feel has happened with the overall market. So they do use market statistics to determine whether there is an increase or decrease overall. But yeah, and Qualicum Beach has higher priced properties, and so those did come down a little bit last year. Parksville, I guess the 3% increase, I mean, there's been a lot of activity here. It's got some lower priced properties that has pulled that up. But yeah, there's really no, it's an algorithm. There's no, not to say it's hard to figure out. Somebody knows how it works, but I don't. I don't know. I really don't know. It just is what it is.
Okay. And
when it comes to your property taxes, yes, just
the
pay them.
assessed value, when is it assessed?
Oh, yeah. So the value that they use is determined midpoint through the previous year. So your tax assessed value that you're going to receive right now in 2026 was determined back on July 1st, 2025. So it's not the value of, the beginning of the year, the end of the year. It's what was determined at the midpoint through the year. And there is a lot of data that's collected that goes into them calculating this stuff, because there's two parts of the tax assessment to get the total value. They assign a land value, and they assign a land value, and they assign a value to the improvements. So improvements are like houses, buildings, things like that. And so what happens is in your neighborhood, and lots are different sizes, so they'll assign a price per square foot for your lot. And then, so if your lot's bigger than your neighbor's, your land value is going to be higher. They just multiply your square footage of your lot versus that rate, and then it goes up. Same thing with your improvements. They're going to determine that if you've got a rancher and ranchers in your neighborhood are priced at this square footage or price per square foot, then they're going to multiply that out. If your house is bigger or smaller, that's what they use. Because the tax assessment authority doesn't have all the information on, they don't know what kind of roof you have, heating system, whether your windows were just replaced. They don't know any of that. They take your lot size, multiply it out by a factor. They take your house size and multiply it out by a factor, and that gives you the number. So that's why they're really not that accurate when it comes to market value. That's it.